All right. Do I need a shower? Yes. Am I wearing a bra? No. Are we going to read today anyway? Yes. We are calling today's episode of A Change of Tide, Chapter 4, We Show Up and We Get It Done Because Done is Better Than Perfect. Okay? All right. Good. Everybody sit down. Okay. And I didn't even bring water. This is going to be... It's going to be great. I feel it in my nuggets. Chapter 4, Saturday, December 8th. December 8th, 2008. Good gravy. Yesterday was nuts. I went to Emma's grandma's house. Cool place. Victorian meets major hippie. And so much happened. I wanted to write last night, but Mom, well, it doesn't really matter. Here's everything I remember. Madame Ortega, that's Emma's grandma, read my poem and had me make this weird mix in a teacup. And she read that too. It was literally a bunch of leaves and a cup of sour milk that magically changed into this gorgeous green liquid with all these shapes on top that meant different stuff. It was wild. Other things I remember. Madame Ortega is apparently a medium. That means she talks to dead people. Anyway, so I interviewed Madame O for the project, and she told me this amazing story about the first time she saw and helped a dead person. Madame O was only like 7, and this girl, Heidi, needed her help. The short version is Madame O was able to help her, and she's been helping dead people ever since. Madame O told me all about mediums. I think we're okay. I usually sneeze in 3s, but occasionally I just get 2, so sometimes it's like 5, which is the worst. Okay. Madame O told me all about mediums and about how she can see people's auras. But the weird doesn't stop there. Apparently, Rupert, that's Madame O's late husband, had a great grandma who was an elf. Being a medium skips a generation, so that means neither Rochelle, Emma's aunt, or Amy, Emma's late mom, were mediums. But Emma is. She told me Emma is also psychic. Something to do with seeing the future. I mean, on the one hand, how is any of this possible? On the other, I'm 87% sure I'm a witch, so I guess it's very possible. Speaking of which, haha, here's my big struggle. While Madame O was doing my reading, she mentioned potential and powers several times. So does she know I'm a witch? Or is she talking about the power we each have over our lives, like hippy dippy stuff? I haven't actually told anyone, well, Mom, but I don't think that counts. This isn't really the kind of thing you just go around saying out loud. They used to burn you at the stake for that. So do I tell Madame O or Emma? They might be able to help, but also maybe not. What if Madame O's stories are just that? Stories. She was in the circus. Maybe she spent so many years telling stories for her act that she started to believe them. But some of the things that she told me, I'll go to have a pause option next time. While Nikki had always been a bit of a wild spirit, it drove Margaret insane. This was a bit too wild even for her. A bit too unknown. Luckily, her magic was on her side. So when Nikki dropped her pen and muttered, "I wish I knew what to do," her magic responded. The pen rose as though held by an invisible hand. Nikki jumped off her bed and backed into the corner of the room, keeping her eyes on the pen, which wrote 2 words and dropped. Nikki stood in that corner for a few minutes, but it felt like hours. Finally, she inched toward the bed, ready to spring back at the corner if anything happened. She read the 2 scribbled words, "Tell her." You and I know her magic was offering her help, but she merely believed, at least for the immediate moment, that her pen was possessed. A strange mixture of fear and relief filled her, possessed or not. At least something offered her an answer. "How is that even possible?" Nikki whispered. She poked the pen and jerked back. Nothing happened. She tried this exercise once more, and when again nothing happened, she picked up her pen. Okay, that was weird. That handwriting isn't mine. My pen wrote all by itself. Or maybe, but no, that's impossible. What's really possible? I mean, what if my magic did that? Maybe my magic thinks I should tell Emma. Thinks? Can magic think? Curiosity and fear wrestled within her as the question echoed in her mind. Can magic think? Nikki licked her lips and wrung her hands, willing them to stop shaking so much. Then Ethel's words from yesterday's reading floated through Nikki's mind, as if Ethel was in the room, whispering in her ears, "You have both a wild and a tame nature to your abilities." Magic is wild, Nikki whispered to herself. The thought should have been scary. It should have sent fear rushing through her. It should have sent her flying under the covers, hiding from the world. However, it did none of these things. Instead, Nikki found peace. Nikki's door flew open. Margaret stood in the doorframe, flushed and frantic. "Why are you still in your PJs? You're going to be late. I know I said I'd take Cam, but I have a meeting in 20 minutes. If I stop to drop him off, I'll be late. Mr. Okoro will not be kept waiting." After saying all of this in a single breath, Margaret hurried over to Cam's room, knocked once, and opened the door. "Mom!" Cam groaned, burrowing into his blankets. "Get up!" Margaret threw off the covers. When she saw his threadbare X-Wing PJs, she sighed. "Cameron, I thought I told you to throw those out." "They're warm," he insisted, hopping out of his bed and running to the bathroom. Margaret grumbled as she yanked the covers up on Cam's bed, promptly smoothing them before tucking in the edges. "They're practically see-through. They can't possibly be warm." "Mom," Nikki said, leaning on Cam's doorframe, "what's the big deal? He can't hold on to things just because your father gave them to him. He'll be home soon and he can give Cam some new pajamas then." Margaret wiped a tear away before it could mess with her mascara. "Oh, these allergies." Nikki hugged her mom. "Dad'll be home in 4 months. 4 months." "I know," Margaret said, patting Nikki's back. She pulled back from the hug and fiddled with Nikki's hair. "I know you like it dark, but could you at least cut it?" "What about Mr. Okoro?" Margaret's eyes widened. "Oh my goodness, you're right." She glanced at her makeup in the hallway mirror, blew kisses, and said, "I love you both, make good choices." A jingle of car keys and a slam of the door later, she was gone. "Can we make bad choices? Just once?" Cam's head popped out of the bathroom, toothpaste foam dripping from his mouth. "Finish brushing your teeth and we'll talk," Nikki said. She went into the kitchen to put the kettle on and plug her phone into charge. "What's for breakfast?" Cam asked, sliding into the kitchen. "How about chocolate chip pancakes?" Nikki pulled a bowl from the cupboard. "Do we have peanut butter?" "You check and I'll start on the batter," Nikki said. They chatted as Nikki cooked and Cam ate. After finishing his 4th helping of pancakes slathered in peanut butter and syrup, Cam put his fork and sticky plate into the sink. He washed his hands and asked, "Do you think Dad will actually come home this time?" "What do you mean?" Nikki sipped on her orange juice. "Well, he was supposed to be home by now, but then he got an extension, so he'll be home in April. But will he actually come home, or will he get another extension?" Oh, sorry. Nikki sighed. Knowing what she was going to say next was not what he wanted to hear. "But I don't know. I hope he'll come home. I hope he won't get another extension, but I really don't know." Cam's shoulders slumped and he blew his breath through his lips. "Hey," Nikki said, throwing an arm over his 10-year-old shoulders that carried more worry than they should. "Why don't you go watch TV in Mom and Dad's room? I don't think Mom will mind as long as you wash your sticky face before you get in her bed." Cam touched his mouth and felt syrup remnants. He grinned, washed his face in the sink, and ran to their parents' room. As she listened to Cam sing along with the SpongeBob theme song, Nikki smiled to herself and pulled her phone off the charging table. She had a text message from Emma. "Emma, hey, I just want to see if Cam is okay. Grandma can be kind of intense. Did she scare him at all?" "Nah." "Oh, Nikki. Nah, he's a tough kid. Thanks for checking in." Thanks for checking in, though." Emma, "Absolutely." Nikki, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" Emma, "Sure." Nikki, "Are you really psychic? Your grandma said you were, but I wasn't sure if she was for real or if it was part of a circus act." Sorry, my brain is slowing down. Emma, "I'm a psychic medium. Basically, I have visions of the future and I help spirits finish their unfinished business." Nikki, "That's wicked cool. So how do your visions work?" As Nikki waited for Emma to respond back, she rinsed dishes and put them in the dishwasher, all the while wondering if she was overstepping by asking how visions worked. If someone had asked Nikki how being a witch worked, she wouldn't have an answer. She grabbed her phone and tapped out another message. Nikki, I mean, if it's too hard to explain, don't worry about it. I didn't mean to pry. Emma, oh, it's okay. I was trying to find a way to explain it in a way that won't freak you out. Most people tend to freak out. Nikki, it takes a lot to freak me out these days. Emma, so basically I see a vision. It literally takes over my physical sight, and I see glimpses of the future. It's not set in stone, though, so it might happen, but it also might not. Nikki, that sounds confusing. Emma, it can be. Nikki, can I tell you something? Emma, sure. We have the advantage of hindsight. Therefore, we know Nikki's magic had told her to tell Emma. Nikki had no such advantage as she lived through this moment, and while she mentally reasoned it was a good thing to do, her stomach still felt like she had swallowed a school of goldfish as she typed her message. She took a deep breath and hit the send button. Nikki, first a question. Do you believe in magic? Emma, depends. Do you mean magic? Magic. Or magic? Magick. Nikki, what's the difference? Emma, magic, with a C, is pretend. It's fairy stories and Barbie princess movies. Magic, with a K, is real. It exists in our world. Nikki, magic, with a K. Then, Emma, yes. Nikki, I have magic. I think I might be a witch or something. Emma, I'm so pleased you found out. And it's not or something. You are a witch. Oh boy. Nikki had to reread Emma's response several times before it sunk in. She fought the temptation to throw her phone. Instead, she opted to stand and pace around the kitchen, fuming and muttering to herself. She could have told me. She could have told me. I mean, okay, I might not have believed her. I might have thought she was crazy. The more she muttered, the more she realized Emma had been right to wait. Though this logic did nothing for the tightness in her chest. Gritting her teeth, she tapped out another message. Nikki, how long have you known? Emma, a while. Nikki, meaning? Emma, I considered telling you, but after talking with Rochelle, we both thought it would be better to let you find out on your own and discover you could trust me. If I was wrong, I'd be exposing magic, and that's never a good idea. Here we go. I can't turn the page. Nikki, makes sense, I guess. So what now? How did this even happen to me? Emma, now you learn to control your powers. It happened because of who your parents are. It's in your blood. Nikki, why didn't anyone tell me this would happen? Emma, I'm not sure. For now, practice controlling your powers. I've got to run, but I'll see you Monday. Nellie will have some interesting information on Aslan O'Crane for you. Ouch. One word stuck out in that last message. Powers. Plural. Nikki wondered what other powers she had. As far as she knew, she had one power, making stuff appear. Nikki caught sight of her empty glass, closed her eyes, and thought, I want more orange juice. There was a small pop. Nikki cracked open one eye. The glass was still empty. She opened her eyes fully. A steady dripping sound came from the refrigerator. Tentatively. Sorry. Tentatively, Nikki walked toward the fridge. She opened the door only to discover every single orange had burst, including the jug of orange juice. Sticky pulp and juice trickled down every surface in the refrigerator. Nikki sighed. This will probably be safer to clean, sans magic. December 8th, 08. Still haven't been in the water. Is it weird? I almost think it would be easier to get in the water if I had been bitten by a shark. I mean, that happens to other people, you know? There are other surfers who keep surfing after their attacks, but I've never heard of anyone else sprouting scales. What if it's just in one spot? I might be able to cover it up. If it spreads to my whole body, it could end my career. I have to know. Today. I have to know. Okay. I have to know. Today. I have to know today. Right now. Nellie was not made for standing still. She rushed around the room, tossing her journal in a duffel bag along with the towel and a pair of sweatpants. After shoving on her lucky black bikini, she threw her clothes back on and carried her duffel into the front of the house, chucking it into the futon in the front room. "Where are you headed, kid?" Tom, Nikki's tall and scruffy dad, stood behind the island in the kitchen. He wore an old rust-red strong current long sleeve and some khaki shorts. His salt and pepper hair and beard were growing more salt than pepper these days. "Beach," Nellie said, grabbing a banana out of the fruit bowl on the island. Tom pulled out the blender and rattled around in the fridge, pulling out various fruits, a bag of spinach, a quart of milk, and a carton of Greek yogurt. While he rummages through the cupboards looking for his protein powder, I'll tell you more about the Hanson home, and specifically their kitchen, which might be one of my favorite places. Their house wasn't particularly large, though it was what Margaret would have described as a 3-bed, 1-bath. Because it was an open plan, and the front room, dining room, and kitchen were really all the same room. Bamboo flooring covered the whole house. The kitchen? Well, I did tell you it's one of my favorites. Butcher block countertops, fern-colored cabinets, the island I've already mentioned, and all of it framed by bright yellow walls. Melinda, Nellie's mom, had loved changing the color of the kitchen every few years. Yellow was the last color she had picked. All in all, it was a gorgeous little kitchen, all on its own. But what made it so wonderful, so special, was the way... Sorry, I lost my spot. Was the way everyone lived together in the kitchen. It was the heart of the Hanson home. It saw all the happiness, pain, and growth of the family. It would one day wax heavy with history, become haunted even. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. Back to Tom, who set the canister of protein powder on the island. Can you tell I'm not a professional at this? No? You couldn't tell? Oh, thanks. That's so nice. "Not surfing?" he asked, glancing at Nellie as he threw a handful of strawberries, green and all, into the blender. "No," Nellie said, not meeting his eyes. He knew. She knew he knew. "I just need to clear my head, you know?" He dumped a scoop of vanilla protein powder on top of the strawberries. "Like, you know how you say that sometimes if you're having an off day, trying to go and force it just puts more bad mojo out there? I don't need more bad mojo," Nellie said, hoping she sounded as casual as she meant to. "Off day, huh?" "Sounds more like it's been an off week." Into the blender went a handful of spinach, which Tom packed down with a wooden spoon. Nellie sighed. "What did Joe say?" "Nothing," Tom said, eyeballing the milk as he poured. "I just noticed. Your board hasn't moved, and your rainbow of wax hasn't changed since Wednesday. Is there anything you want to talk about?" I just... Nellie struggled for the words. She sighed, running her fingers through her short hair. "I'm hoping the Cove will help me sort it out." "Well, take your time. Your mom always said not to push you girls too hard," he said, and then started the blender. He had a way of avoiding further conversation after mentioning Melinda, which usually involved a loud kitchen appliance. "Have fun. Be home by 5. I'm grilling tonight," he held over the blender. He waved, keeping his eyes on his churning smoothie. After waving half-heartedly, not bothering to say anything over the burring of the blender, Nellie hopped in her little truck and drove down the hill. She paused at the stop sign, debating between going right and taking the more direct but more populated road, or going left and taking less direct but also less busy road. She flipped on her right blinker, which clicked loudly in the quiet car. Following the road down to Maine, Nellie cleared her throat in an attempt to break through the suffocating silence. It didn't work. She turned on the radio, turning it back off almost immediately. The cheery sounds of DJ Mark were too much. Instead, she started talking to herself. She did this before any surf meet that she was particularly nervous about, though of course she'd never admit to being nervous. "It's going to be fine," she said quietly as she waited at the light before turning left onto Main. The silence pushed back. "It will be fine," she repeated, a little bit louder, a bit more urgently. She had timed the lights perfectly. After rolling through 2 more greens, she pulled into the parking lot across the street from the Cove. The Cove was a mysterious place. A secret place. To anyone walking by, the entrance was nothing more than a cliffside completely covered by bushy brambles and thorny weeds, with an unreachable ocean far below. Even the path to the cove was a family secret, one that Nellie had shared only with Wyatt. She sat in the car for a second, looking down to make sure that she was alone. Once she was positive no one else was around, Nellie crossed the street and passed through the brambles, ducking down as she disappeared down the path. When she reached the 57th step, she took a sharp left, and walked, seeming to go away from the beach. She hiked for a bit before finally coming down the slope, leading her straight to the little cove. It had been years since she had laid eyes on the place. I forgot how beautiful this place is, she thought aloud. The cove was comprised of a sheltered bay of crystal clear water that broke on soft white sand. Great sheer walls of bedrock and greenstone protected the cove. Nellie looked out over the ocean and started taking off her extra layer. You're probably overreacting, she said to herself. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time we blew something out of proportion. It's probably nothing. Maybe it was a trick of the sun or something weird like that. Her brain agreed with this logic. Her gut did not. Nellie turned to face the ocean again. The wind blew her sun-kissed hair from her face. The sun was shining deliciously, warming Nellie's tanned skin. It's now or never, she said, and ran into the break, diving into the frigid waters. First, the freezing pain of the 55-degree water hit Nellie. Then a new and more intense pain overwhelmed her senses. At first, she thought she was being stabbed, repeatedly stabbed all over her body. But the sensation changed, and a small corner of Nellie's mind wondered if somehow she had been set on fire. Every nerve in her body ignited. Pain screamed in her bones. She could feel them cracking and shifting, twisting and melding. Each stab, each crack, each twist sent colors flying before her eyes, vivid reds, deep oranges, blinding yellows, and just as she thought she was going to reach white, going to reach the end of her ability to withstand whatever was happening to her, everything went blue. The pain retreated, and a calm, soothing coolness washed over her. Her mind felt squishy and intangible, almost separated from her. Nellie reached out to touch the blue, only half conscious. It was not a color in her mind, but the ocean water surrounding her. She tried to touch it, move her hand through it, but her hand wouldn't move. A hand Nellie had never seen before moved through the water in front of her. This hand was strange. The back of it was iridescent and tinted tea green with a delicate webbing between the fingers. The skin looked more like the sharp-toothed scales of a shark than the smooth skin of a human. Nellie wanted a closer look at the strange hand and found it was moving closer to her as though responding to her thoughts. The fingers opened and closed, the webbing contracted and expanded. Nellie was curious about what the palm of the hand looked like, and the hand again, responding to her thoughts, moved so she could see the hand. As the hand opened, there on the palm, in her own handwriting, were the names and numbers of Nikki and Emma. Then she realized what I'm sure you've already figured out. The greenish webbed hand was hers. The fuzzy, floating feeling in her brain dissipated immediately. Nellie became aware of how long she had been underwater, yet her lungs did not scream for air. She looked down, trying to gain her bearings, and that was when she saw it. Where her legs should have been was a long, black tail, complete with gray-black flute. What the? Nellie slapped her hands over her mouth. She had spoken underwater. This was too much. She clawed her way to the surface, avoiding movement in her legs as much as she could. As the top of her head breached the line between water and air, a thought struck her. She could clearly breathe underwater, but could she still breathe above it? She sunk down. Nellie took a deep breath underwater and blew it out, preparing herself before shoving her head above the water. She held her breath for a second, then slowly she sipped the air, waiting to see if she choked. She could still breathe air, though it tasted differently. It felt cold and crisp. It reminded her of Christmases spent in northern Idaho with her dad's older brother, Roger, before he passed. With that hurdle successfully navigated, Nellie turned her attention to getting out of the water as fast as possible. She dragged her lower body out of the water and onto the sand. Nellie felt her body changing again. Strangely, this time there was no searing pain. She chanced to glance at her lower half and was relieved to discover she had legs and toes again. Noticing her bikini bottoms were nowhere to be seen, Nellie found herself incredibly grateful that she was alone. It was not the first time she had lost part of her bathing suit to the ocean. She scrambled up to her bag, wrenched on the sweatpants she had thrown in there earlier. Nellie collapsed onto the sand. The brief taste of relief dissipated as the magnitude of what had just happened hit her. If someone had come up to Nellie an hour before this moment and carved out her entire chest with a white-hot scoop, she would have felt more whole and more alive than she did now. She stared out into the waves. There had only ever been one place where Nellie could be completely herself. No need to be stronger than she was. No need to hide the broken pieces that she had shaped into a recognizable person. No need to pretend. But now, I can never go into the ocean again. 8th December 2008. We have 24 days to prepare, provided they even want to help. I mean, just because I've seen them help doesn't mean they will, but I hope they do. It's all up to them, really. The idea of having to face whatever was coming alone made Emma feel sick. So she did what she always did when she felt overwhelmed by helplessness and began making a plan. The gears in her head turned. The laws around magic were clear, but perhaps if there was a way she could at least figure out who Nikki and Nellie's mentors would be, then she could. There's a loud crash in the kitchen, followed by a shout. Emma jumped up from her desk and bolted to the kitchen. She found Rochelle laughing hysterically on the floor, covered in what appeared to be sawdust. "What happened?" Emma said, reaching to help her aunt off the floor. "I was testing an electric chisel for my sculpting project, and I had the genius idea of attaching a bag to the tool. It says that you can do that. Of course, I didn't have the right kind of bag and foolishly assumed any bag would work. I tested the chisel out on some wood, and wouldn't you know it, it exploded." Rochelle explained quickly, standing up, laughing again. "I even thought this might explode as I hooked it up." Rochelle sighed. All's well that ends well, I guess." "I guess so," Emma said, brushing sawdust off her aunt's shoulders. "How's your Saturday going?" Rochelle asked, opening the kitchen window. "You've been locked away in your room all day." "Sorry," Emma said, pulling the broom off its hook by the refrigerator. "But there is some good news." "Oh?" "Nikki messaged me. She's definitely found out about her powers. I was actually wondering if I could find out who her mentor is. I might be able to—" "Emma," Rochelle said in her motherly tone. "I wouldn't interfere." "Exactly." Emma leaned on the broom. "I just thought if I could at least have a vision and maybe see—" Rochelle put her hands on Emma's shoulders. "Now I know you're worried, and you're just trying to help, but you have to remember the laws we have for magic are there for a reason. And they have to find their mentors on their own," Emma groaned. "That's the way it works," Rochelle said. "But why?" Emma asked. "Oh, dear," Rochelle said. "I think Grandma might be able to answer that better than I can." Emma raised an eyebrow and frowned. "Oh, fine," Rochelle said, brushing bits of sawdust off the 2 stools at the island. She sat on one and patted the other. Emma leaned the broom against the island and sat. "You know how Grandma talks about how magic can be used, but it's also wild?" Emma nodded. "Well," Rochelle said as she brushed sawdust from the island top, "each magical being must build his or her own relationship with magic, and part of that is seeking a mentor. If a mentor, for good or ill, is pushed onto a magical being not ready to be taught or unwilling to be taught, the wild nature of magic can turn—" She paused, looking for the right word. "Rebellious. So they have to find their own mentors because they have to be receptive to being taught." Rochelle nodded and added, "Otherwise, the relationship with magic will be as useful as that of a harsh master with a wild horse. Everyone will just end up bloodied and covered in mud." Emma groaned. "I know it's hard," Rochelle said, hugging her niece. Emma sighed, breathing in the smell of her aunt, sawdust from the bag explosion, and geranium oil for her eczema. "Now, how is Nellie doing?" "I'm not sure," Emma said, pulling back from the hug. "She's very private. I mean, we've been in the same science class for the past 6 years, but she just barely noticed me in chem class the other day, and I sit right next to her." Emma sighed again. This was not the first time she had gone unnoticed, unremembered. In fact, most of her life had been this way. "Maybe she needs a friend," Rochelle said. "She's only had one friend for as long as I've known her." True as that may be, Rochelle said, given what she's going through, I'm sure she needs a friend. That is the end of chapter 4. Fun fact, there is a hidden message inside this book that you can find with the bookmark. This is obviously the bookmark. This is the old bookmark. Can you see there's a little bit? Nope, you can't see it. Anyway, there's a little something written on the bookmark. It's true of the new bookmarks too, which I don't have one. I don't have one up here, but you'll have to actually get the book to do that. So, want to get it? It's on Amazon. And I will see you next week.